At this point, I'm going to take a little diversion to talk about 3D printing, because I know that making a 3D print of models you create in SketchUp will be quite a motivating factor and certainly gives you quite a buzz. And there are a couple of vital things. The size at the moment in default is all wrong. There's a tape measure here, and I can show the scale by measuring the guy. But he's a reference height man, so I can take the tape measure and say how tall is this guy, and I go click, drag to the top of his head, and you can see I don't know if that means anything to you, but it means he's 6 foot 2 inches and 15/16 of an inch. So there are two issues. One is he is far too big for give me a scale for any object I create to be drawn in a 3D printer. We're talking in millimeters rather than feet and inches, which is a very American unit of measurement. I'm old enough, British, to be familiar with these measurements, but it's not something I ever use in anything that's kind of scientific. So a few things. I am going to press escape button to get rid of that. Just by default press the select tool, and in model info I can click the information button and it allow me to select the format, architectural, and I'm going to go to millimeters. So the default is what they call architectural, and now I'm also going to say area units, and let's get rid of the length unit so I can fit it there. Area units is by default square inches, so I'm going to do square millimeters and cancel that, and then volume units, again cubic inches, I'm going to go to cubic millimeters. So everything is in what I think of as metric units. So click away, I think, to get rid of it. Or click on the information button again. There you are. Click on the information button and it vanishes. So now everything will be measured in millimeters. But a typical measurement for 3D printing, you can imagine the maximum size, something like 7 centimeters, 70 millimeters. So everything, to be safe, perhaps has to be fitted in a base of 60 millimeters square. Now, the man isn't going to be much use as a reference, so I'm going to get rid of him, and I've got the select tool and just select and delete. Just click the delete button on my keyboard, and now I'm going to draw a square 60 millimeters by 60 millimeters. Now, because of the scale, you can see down the bottom. Now have a look at the bottom right hand corner of the screen, and you can see the dimensions of the rectangle I'm drawing in millimeters, and it's like 2190 millimeters. Now that is crazily too big. I want one 60 millimeters square. Now this is a lovely feature. I'm just going to type 60, 60. Notice I did not click in that window to select anything. I just typed as I'm drawing the rectangle. The moment I move the mouse pointer, it threw it into chaos again. So 60, 60, and then press enter, and I've drawn a tiny square at the origin of the axes. So you think, okay, now I could zoom in, but there's a very clever zoom in tool, and that is the zoom extents tool. Now if I click that, it will just fill the screen with whatever I've drawn so far. So zoom extents and now I have the rectangle or the square filling the screen. You notice that the normal zoom tool has disappeared, so I'm going to go to the store cupboard, select that, and zoom out. I'm going to rotate, and there we have a base on which we can draw everything that we want to create to do a 3D print. Now, one thing we're going to want to do, if we keep that as a guide for while we're drawing it, at the end we're going to want to delete it. So I am going to do what will become quite a interesting feature, is to select everything that makes up the square, because the square is not just a surface, it's a surface and 4 lines. So there are 5 elements really to the square. And now if I right click, I can make it a group, and that means I'll be able to delete that rectangle or square at the end and just print the object I want to print. So I'm just going to draw a rectangle on that surface, do a push-pull, and now I'm going to move and select the group here and delete it, and there it is gone. And now I can export this item for printing, knowing that it is nicely within the dimensions that my printer will cope with. And what I do then is to select this, go to the download, always expect it to be export, but it's download, and the magic word is STL. SKP is just downloading it as a SketchUp project that you can email to someone else. PNG is just a picture. STL is the STL file for 3D printing. So that's what I'm going to do. And it's gone to my download folder, and it's untitled brackets 1. So that if I go to my downloads folder, it will be there, and I can then rename it and use it for all printing on my 3D printer.